There is a specific kind of cold that doesn't just bite your skin, it interrogates your soul. It's December 22nd, 1849, Semyonovsky Square, St. Petersburg. You are 28 years old, you're a writer, you're a dreamer, you're a revolutionary, or at least you like the idea of being one. But the ideas have run out. You're standing in the snow in a thin shirt. You've been stripped of your rank, your sword has been broken, and you are tied to a stake. Across from you, the firing squad is leveling their rifles. They've already pulled the blindfolds over the first 3 men in line. You are next. In this moment, time stops being a line and becomes a vertical drop. You have exactly 5 minutes to live. 2 minutes to say goodbye to your comrades. 2 minutes to think your last thoughts. 1 minute to look at the world for the final time. You look at the gilded dome of the cathedral nearby, reflecting the morning sun, and you realize with a sickening, ecstatic clarity that in 60 seconds, you will be merged with that light. You will be nothing. You will be everything. And then the world breaks. A messenger gallops into the square. The Tsar has granted a mercy. The death sentence is commuted to 4 years of hard labor in Siberia. The man next to you goes insane on the spot. But you feel like you've been born again. Welcome to the mind of Fyodor Dostoevsky. Dostoevsky is the patient zero of the modern nervous breakdown. Long before Freud was mapping the ego or Nietzsche was declaring the death of God, Dostoevsky was already living in the wreckage. He is the man who looked at the Crystal Palace, that gleaming 19th century dream of a rational, scientific, perfect society, and spat on the floor. He knew that if you gave a human being everything they wanted, perfect health, economic security, and endless cake, they would still smash the windows just to prove that they aren't piano keys, just to prove they are still dangerously, beautifully free. Today we are going into the basement. We're talking about the spite, the bile, and the brilliance of the underground man. We're looking at why a man who spent his life losing his shirt at roulette and falling into epileptic seizures understood your anxiety better than any algorithm ever will. We are asking the question that haunted every page he ever wrote. What do we do with our freedom when we no longer have a God to give it to? The firing squad is gone, but the stakes are still there. Grab your coat. It's going to be a long winter. 835. Let's start with the lie. You know the one. The one that says if we just fix the system, we fix the soul. The one that says if we just distribute the brain correctly, if we map the brain perfectly, if we build enough schools and hospitals and high-speed rail, people will stop being assholes. The idea that human suffering is just a bug in the software of history and we're one update away from version 1.0 of the earthly paradise. In 1840 St. Petersburg, Dostoevsky swallowed that lie whole. He was a socialist, a dreamer. He sat in smoke-filled rooms with the Petrushevsky Circle, reading banned French philosophy and nodding along to the idea that the old world was just a bad habit we could break with enough reason. Then came the firing squad. But the firing squad was the quick part. The real education began on the sled ride to Omsk. Imagine 4 years in a Siberian katorga. You aren't a political prisoner with special privileges. You are a number. You are shackled at the ankles. 10-pound iron weights that stay on you every second for 1,460 days. You sleep on a wooden plank with 30 other men in a room that smells like wet wool, human waste, and rotting cabbage. This is where Dostoevsky's Siberian laboratory begins. Because in that prison, Dostoevsky didn't find the noble oppressed. He didn't find people who were only bad because society was mean to them. He found something much darker. He found men who would commit a murder just to feel the thrill of the blade. He found men who would gamble away their last shirt, knowing they'd freeze to death the next morning just to see the card turn. He saw that even in a cage, humans don't act in their best interest. They act in their own interest, and sometimes their interest is chaos. He realized that the socialist utopians back in the city were like children playing with matches. They thought they could reorganize humanity into a crystal palace. A perfectly transparent, perfectly rational, perfectly safe collective. They thought that because 2 times 2 equals 4, human behavior must be equally predictable. But Dostoevsky, he was looking at the chaos of the human heart. He's sitting on that wooden plank in Siberia watching a fellow prisoner beat a horse for no reason other than the sheer, intoxicating power of being the one who delivers the pain. And he realizes the Crystal Palace is a tomb. Why? Because if you build a world where everything is calculated, where every need is met, and every correct choice is incentivized, you've done something unforgivable. You've taken away a person's right to be a disaster. And for Dostoevsky, the right to be a disaster is the only thing that makes you human. This is where the underground man is born. He isn't a character. He's a scream from the basement of the 19th century. He's the guy who says, I am a sick man. I am a spiteful man. I am an unattractive man. I believe my liver is diseased. He's the first person in literature to admit that he hates himself, but he hates you more for trying to help him. Think about your life right now. Think about the optimization culture, the apps that track your sleep, the algorithms that tell you what to buy, the LinkedIn gurus who tell you how to unlock your potential by waking up at 4 a.m. and drinking buttered coffee. They are building you a crystal palace. They are trying to turn your life into a maths problem where the answer is always productivity. And Dostoevsky is standing in the corner of the room, shaking his chains and laughing. He knows that eventually you're going to want to burn it all down. Not because you're evil and not because you're stupid, but because you're bored, because the perfect life is a form of spiritual suffocation. He understood that we have an underground part of us, a dark, damp cellar where we keep our spite, our irrationality, and our need for suffering. We need to suffer sometimes. We need to feel the friction of the world against our skin to know we're still there. In Siberia, Dostoevsky stopped being a liberal and started being a prophet. He saw the new men of Russia, the nihilists, the rationalists, the one who believed that science would replace God. He saw them coming. He saw that they would eventually try to build a world based on pure reason, and he knew exactly what the world would look like. A world of guillotines. A world of extraordinary men. This leads us to the most dangerous thought Dostoevsky ever had. It's the thought that fueled Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment. Raskolnikov is a student. He's broke. He's rational. He looks at an old mean pawnbroker, a louse as he calls her, and he does the maths. He says, if I kill her and take her money, I can use it to do 1,000 good deeds. One life, a useless life, traded for the betterment of hundreds. It's simple arithmetic. 2 times 2 equals 4. He thinks he's an extraordinary man. He thinks he's above the herd. He thinks he can step over the blood because he has a plan. But Dostoevsky knows what happens next. The moment the axe falls, the arithmetic breaks. Because the extraordinary man isn't a machine, he's a nervous system. And his nervous system knows something his brain refused to admit. You cannot calculate your way out of the fact that you've destroyed a piece of the universe. The underground isn't just a place where we hide our sins, it's the place where we keep our freedom. Dostoevsky's genius was realizing that human freedom is a terrible gift. It's not the freedom to choose between Pepsi and Coke, it's the freedom to choose your own destruction over someone else's perfect plan for you. He saw that the modern world was headed for a nervous breakdown because it was trying to cure the underground out of us. It was trying to make us sane, rational, and useful. But as Dostoevsky watched his fellow convicts in the House of the Dead, he saw that even in the dirt, even in the chains, there was a strange, jagged dignity in their refusal to be fixed. He realized that if you take away a man's ability to be wrong, you take away his ability to be himself. So here's a question for you, beautiful lot, today. How much of your life is a crystal palace? How much of your personality is just an optimized response to an algorithm? And what happens when the underground man in your chest finally gets tired of the cake and the comfort? In our next section, we're going to talk about the biology of the sacred, about what happens when the brain literally shorts out and for a few seconds you see the face of God, and why that vision is the most terrifying thing Dostoevsky ever experienced. Keep your chains on. We're just getting started. In the world of the Crystal Palace, the world of logic, health, and rationality, a seizure is a malfunction. It's a short circuit in the wiring. It's something to be medicated, managed, and moved out of sight. It is brokenness. But Dostoevsky turned his own neurological collapse into a telescope. Imagine it's a Tuesday night. You're sitting in a cramped apartment in St. Petersburg, the walls closing in, your debts piling up like a mountain of dead leaves. Suddenly, the air changes. The room begins to glow with an impossible, terrifying light. For 5 seconds, maybe 10, the underground vanishes. The spite, the bile, the I am a sick man nonsense, it all evaporates. You feel a harmony so profound it would be worth giving your entire life for. You see the machinery of the universe, and it's not made of gears or logic. It's made of love. It's a moment of supreme, agonizing clarity where you realize that everything, every blade of grass, every act of kindness is exactly where it's supposed to be. And then you hit the floor. You wake up in a pool of your own saliva, your tongue bitten, your muscles screaming, and a dark, suffocating depression settling over you that will last for weeks. This was Dostoevsky's life. He lived on the border between the divine and the dirt. And because he did, he discovered something that the sane people will never understand. The truth isn't found in the middle of the road, it is found at the extremes. He was a man of addictions. If it wasn't the sacred disease of epilepsy, it was the roulette wheel. Dostoevsky spent his European vacations in a fever dream of gambling. He'd lose his money, his wife's jewelry, even his coat. He would stand at the table in Wiesbaden, watching that little ivory ball click, click, click around the wheel. And he wasn't looking for a payout. He was looking for that same scaffold moment from Semyonovsky Square. He wanted to feel the absolute, terrifying presence of the now. When you're gambling with your last cent, you aren't thinking about the future. You aren't thinking about your career or your reputation. You are a raw nerve ending. You are finally, brutally awake. Dostoevsky realized that humans don't actually want happiness. Happiness is boring. Happiness is a flat line. What humans want is intensity. We want to feel the weight of our own existence, even if that weight is crushing us. This is the secret ingredient he poured into his greatest creation, the Brothers Karamazov. Specifically, a chapter called The Grand Inquisitor. If you want to understand the 21st century, why we trade our privacy for convenience, why we give our freedom for safety, why we crave strong men and algorithms, you need to listen to the Inquisitor. The scene is Seville. During the Inquisition, Jesus comes back. He doesn't say anything, he just walks around healing people. The church arrests him immediately. The Grand Inquisitor, a 90-year-old man who has spent his life managing the masses, goes to Jesus' cell at night to tell him why he has to be burned at the stake. And his argument is devastating. He tells Jesus, you gave them freedom. You gave them the choice to follow you or not. And that was your mistake. Because humans can't handle freedom. It's too heavy. It's a torture. For 1,500 years, we've been trying to fix your work. We've given them miracle, mystery, and authority. We've given them bread and we've told them what to believe, and they are happy for it. They brought their freedom to us and laid it at our feet. The Inquisitor is the ultimate optimization manager. He's the CEO of the global Crystal Palace. He says that the vast majority of people don't want to be the observing eye. They don't want to look into the abyss of their own souls. They want a screen that tells them they're okay. They want an authority that tells them who to hate and what to buy. He tells Jesus, we are more merciful than you. You demanded they be gods. We allow them to be children. Dostoevsky, the man who loved Jesus with a desperate, shaky faith, wrote the Inquisitor's argument so well that it's almost impossible to beat. He was honest enough to admit that freedom is a nightmare. He saw that the modern world would eventually offer us a deal. Give us your soul and we'll give you a world without suffering. Give us your autonomy and we'll give you a world where rationality reigns. Look around you. Look at the nudge economy. Look at the way we're curated, filtered, and pacified. We are living in the Inquisitor's dream. We have the miracles of technology, the mystery of the black box algorithm, and the authority of the feed. And yet, why are we so miserable? Why is the underground man in your chest still screaming? Because Dostoevsky knew the one thing the Inquisitor ignored. You can't kill the spite. You can't optimize the inner lizard. Dostoevsky's epilepsy taught him that human consciousness is a wound. It's a gap between what we are and what we can see. Dirt and nerves gazing at the infinite. And you can't heal that wound with progress or a better economic system or a more efficient government. You can only live in the tension. He understood that if you try to build a world where everything is permitted because there's no God, or everything is calculated because there's no mystery, you end up with Raskolnikov's axe or the Inquisitor's fire. He was the prophet of the nervous breakdown because he saw that we would eventually become too rational to believe in anything, but too human to survive on facts alone. So here's your dose of truth for the day. The reason you feel like a sick man isn't because you failed at life. It's because you're waking up to the fact that your life has been calculated for you. The reason you feel the urge to do something stupid or irrational or self-destructive isn't because you're broken. It's your soul's way of proving it's still there. It's the chaos kicking at the walls of the Crystal Palace. In our next section, we are looking at the only way out of the underground. It's not a fix. It's not a cure. It's called grace. And it usually looks like a disaster. Don't go anywhere. Right, it's time for the end of the world. Not the one with the nukes and the zombies, or where the ice caps melt and we all drown in our own plastic. I am talking about the end of your world. The moment when the extraordinary man you've been pretending to be finally runs out of road. The moment when the maths fails, the logic breaks, and you are left standing over the metaphorical body of your own life with an axe in your hand. Dostoevsky's big secret, the one he buried in the thousands of pages of his writing, is that this collapse is the only thing that can save you. In the world of the Crystal Palace, grace is a bug. It's an inefficiency. But for Dostoevsky, grace is the only thing that exists outside the calculation. It's the chaos of the spirit. Take Raskolnikov. He spent the whole book being a rational monster. He's tried to think his way out of guilt. He's tried to justify his crime by saying he's a Napoleon, a Caesar, a man who has the right to kill. He's living in the ultimate intellectual prison. And then there's Sonia. Sonia is a prostitute. In the eyes of the sane world, she's a failure. She's dirt. She's the lowest rung of the social ladder. She shouldn't have anything to give. But she's the only one who can look at Raskolnikov, this sweating, trembling intellectual wreck, and see a human being. She doesn't give him an argument. She doesn't give him a 5-point plan for reintegrating into society. She just reads him the story of Lazarus, the man who was dead for 4 days and then walked out of the tomb. She's telling him, your logic is the tomb. Your extraordinary man theory is the smell of the corpse. Dostoevsky is telling us that you cannot think your way to being a better person. You can't optimize your way to a soul. You have to be broken. You have to reach the point where you realize that you are absolutely 100% full of shit and that you are still loved anyway. That's the roulette of grace. It's the moment you bet everything on the impossible. Think about your own Siberia. Maybe it's a job you hate. Maybe it's a relationship that's become a cold war. Maybe it's the morning realization that you've spent your entire life building a crystal palace for people who don't even like you. The modern world tells you to fix it. Buy a new app, change your diet, get a promotion, more bread, more miracle, more authority. Dostoevsky says, go deeper into the underground. He wants you to sit with the sick man. He wants you to feel the spite. Because until you acknowledge the darkness in your own basement, your light is just a lie. It's a coat of paint on a rotting fence. In The Brothers Karamazov, he gives us the 3 ways we try to handle the weight of being alive. You've got Dmitri, the man of the flesh, the drunk, the gambler, the one who lives for the intensity we talked about. You've got Ivan, the man of the mind, the one who rejects God because he can't accept a world where children suffer. And then you've got Alyosha, the one who tries to love the world even when it doesn't make sense. Most of us think we're Ivan. We're smart, we're cynical, we've got arguments. We look at the world and say, if I were in charge, I'd make it better, fairer, more logical. But Ivan ends up in a room talking to a hallucination of the devil. And the devil doesn't look like a monster. He looks like a middle-aged, slightly pathetic gentleman. He looks like a bureaucrat, like the embodiment of every reasonable excuse you've ever made for your own cowardice. Ivan's pure reason leads him to insanity because reason cannot account for the sheer, jagged reality of the human heart. Dostoevsky's answer to Ivan's cold logic isn't a better argument, it's a kiss. At the end of the Grand Inquisitor story, Jesus doesn't refute the Inquisitor. He doesn't explain why freedom is actually good for the economy. He just walks over and kisses the old man on his bloodless lips. That's it. That's the moment. It's the recognition that the truth isn't something you know, it's something you are. It's the act of looking at the mess, the filth, the spite and the chains and saying yes to it anyway. Dostoevsky died in 1881. Tens of thousands of people followed his casket through the streets of St. Petersburg. Not because he was a great writer, although he was, but because he was the only one who had the balls to tell them the truth, that being human is a disaster, and that's why it's holy. He saw the 20th century coming, he saw the gulags, he saw the extraordinary men who would murder millions in the name of a perfect system. He saw the way we would eventually turn ourselves into data points in a global Crystal Palace. He's not here to comfort you. He's here to remind you that you are dangerous, you are irrational. You are capable of terrible cruelty and impossible love. And you are currently being sold a version of your life that wants to strip all of that away from you. A version that wants you to be a well-adjusted piano key in a song written by a marketing department. Your underground is the only thing the system can't buy. Your spite is your last line of defense. Your seizure, that moment when the world stops making sense and starts making feeling, is your only connection to the divine. Don't let them cure you. Don't let them optimize your anxiety. Your anxiety is the sound of your soul realizing it's in a cage. Dostoevsky spent his life waiting for the firing squad. Every book he wrote was a final 5 minutes, every sentence written as if the rifles were already cocked. What if you lived like that? What if you stopped trying to fix your life and started actually living it? What if you realized that 2 times 2 equals 5 is the only math that actually matters when you're talking about love or grief or the way the sun hits the window in the morning? Let's bring it home. Let's talk about why you're actually listening to this. You aren't here for a history lesson on 19th century Russia. You're here because you feel it. You feel the underground every time you unlock your phone and that hit of phantom anxiety washes over you. You feel it when you look at your calendar and realize there isn't a single second in your day for a miracle or a disaster or a soul. We are living in the terminal stage of the Crystal Palace. Dostoevsky's palace was made of glass and iron. Ours is made of data and predictive modeling. The underground man said, "I am a sick man, I am a spiteful man." Today we've pathologized that spite. We call it burnout. We call it doom scrolling. We label it maladaptive behavior. We treat the underground like a software bug that needs to be patched out with a better routine or a higher dose of SSRIs. But Dostoevsky is leaning over your shoulder, whispering that the bug is the feature. Think about the way we live now. We have outsourced our choices to the Grand Inquisitor's digital descendants. The algorithm tells you what to watch, who to date, and what to get angry about. It offers you the 3 things the Inquisitor promised: miracle, mystery, and authority. It has made life frictionless, and in doing so, it has made life invisible. Dostoevsky knew that human beings need friction. We need the weight of the 10-pound shackles. We need the Semyonovsky Square moments where everything is at stake. When you remove the struggle, you don't get happiness. You get a hollow, echoing boredom that eventually turns into a very specific kind of modern madness. It's the madness of a man who has everything he needs but realizes he is no longer the protagonist of his own life. He's just a data point being shuffled around. This is why Dostoevsky is the only one who can explain the internet to you. Why is the digital world so full of bile? Why is it so spiteful? Because the internet is the ultimate underground. It's the place where the sick men go when the Crystal Palace of polite, professional, optimized society becomes too much to bear. We go online to scream because we aren't allowed to scream in our cubicles. We cultivate spite because it's the only thing that feels authentic in a world of curated authenticity. We lean into the weird world of conspiracy theories and digital tribalism because we are desperate, absolutely starving, for a world that feels a little bit more dangerous, a little bit more mysterious, and a lot less calculated. So what's the move? Do we just burn the palace down? Dostoevsky didn't. He didn't become a nihilist. He didn't stay in the underground. He used the underground as a passage. He knew that the only way to beat the Grand Inquisitor isn't with a revolution, it's with a rebellion of the spirit. It's the refusal to be known. It's the insistence on your own ridiculousness. In his story, The Dream of a Ridiculous Man, the protagonist decides to kill himself because nothing matters. He's the ultimate nihilist. He falls asleep and dreams of a perfect world, an Eden where there is no suffering, no spite, and no Crystal Palace. And you know what he does? He corrupts it. He teaches them how to lie. He introduces them to shame. He breaks the paradise. But when he wakes up, he doesn't feel guilty. He feels alive, because he realizes that a perfect world without the possibility of failure isn't a world for humans. It's a world for statues. He realizes that the struggle, the mess, the diseased liver, and the broken heart are the very things that make love possible. You can't love a machine, not yet anyway. You can't love an algorithm. You can only love something that can break. Dostoevsky's final message is this: don't be afraid of the wreckage. The anxiety you feel, that's not a malfunction. That's your soul's refusal to fall in line. The mess in your life, that's the laboratory where your grace is being forged. The moment when you feel like a sick man in a world of healthy fakes, this is the moment that you are finally starting to see the sun. We are all standing in Semyonovsky Square, all tied to the stake. The rifles of time, of entropy, and of the system are leveled at our chests. The question isn't how to escape the execution. The question is, what are you going to do with the 5 minutes you have left? Are you going to spend them trying to optimize your blindfold? Or are you going to look at the light on the cathedral dome and realize, for one blinding, ecstatic second, that you are free? Let's go back to the square. We started this journey in the snow, tied to a stake looking at a firing squad. It's the ultimate the observing eye moment. Because when the blindfold is lifted and the rifles are lowered, when the mercy of the Tsar or the algorithm or the doctor hits you, you don't just go back to being the person you were. You can't. You've seen the edge of the map. You've seen that the Crystal Palace isn't just a building. It's a distraction from the fact that we are all, every one of us, currently standing on a scaffold. Dostoevsky didn't spend the rest of his life being grateful in some Hallmark card kind of way. He spent it being terrified and ecstatic. He spent it writing like a man whose hair was on fire, because he knew that most people are walking around in a trance of someday. Someday I'll be happy. Someday the system will be fair. Someday I'll have enough money to finally be myself. Dostoevsky says there is no someday. There is only the 5 minutes before the trigger is pulled, and in those 5 minutes, a single sunflower, a breath of cold air, or the touch of a hand is worth more than every rational theory ever written. This is the ethics of the scaffold. It's the philosophy of a man who knows that rationality is a death sentence, but absurdity is a loophole. Think about the character of Prince Mishkin in The Idiot. He's Dostoevsky's attempt to write a perfectly good man. And what does the world do to him? It calls him an idiot, it mocks him, it treats his empathy like a neurological defect. Mishkin talks about an execution he once saw. He describes the prisoner's last moments, the way the man looks at the gilded roof of a nearby church and thinks, if I could only not die, if I could only bring life back, what eternity, and it would all be mine. I should turn every minute into an age. And then Mishkin and Dostoevsky notes the tragedy. The man gets his life back and he goes right back to wasting it, right back to the Crystal Palace, to worrying about status and debts and spite. We are that man. You've had those moments. Maybe it was a near miss on the highway or a health scare. Maybe it was just a sunset that hit you hard in the chest. In those moments, you see the truth. The world is perfect exactly as it is, in all its brokenness. But then the light changes, the adrenaline fades, and you go back to being a sick man with a diseased liver. You go back to the underground. Dostoevsky's mission, the reason he wrote those massive, sweaty, feverish books, was to keep that scaffold clarity alive in the middle of everyday life. He wanted to infect you with the realization that your freedom is a terrible gift because it means you are responsible for the entire world. He famously said, "Everyone is really responsible to all men, for all men, and for everything." That sounds like a burden, right? It sounds like the opposite of the self-care culture we're sold today. The Inquisitor wants you to be responsible for nothing. He wants you to be a child. But Dostoevsky says that your underground spite comes from the fact that you know you're meant for more than just consuming bread and watching miracles. You are meant to be a co-creator of meaning. And that means you have to accept the suffering that comes with it. In the final pages of the Brothers Karamazov, after all the murders and the trials and the philosophical wars, Alyosha Karamazov stands by a stone and talks to a group of boys. One of their friends, a boy named Ilusha, has died. It's a tragedy. It's irrational. It's a bug in the system of a good God. But Alyosha doesn't give them a lecture on theology. He doesn't explain why it happened. He just tells them to remember. You must know that there is nothing higher, or stronger, or more sound, or more useful in life than some good memory. Even if we have only one good memory left in our hearts, even that may sometime be the means of saving us. That's the antidote to the underground. It's not a cure. It's a memory of the light on the dome. It's a memory of a moment when you stepped outside your own ego and felt the weight of someone else's existence. The Crystal Palace wants to replace your memories with content. It wants to replace your underground with engagement. It wants to keep you so busy calculating 2 times 2 that you never notice the firing squad has been standing there the whole time. Stop trying to be extraordinary. Raskolnikov tried that and it led to an axe and a prison cell. Stop trying to be rational. Ivan tried that and it led to a conversation with a hallucinating bureaucrat from hell. Instead, try being ridiculous. Be the person who chooses to love even when it's illogical. Be the person who chooses to forgive even when it's unfair. Be the person who insists on chaos because you'd rather be a living disaster than a dead calculation. Dostoevsky didn't find God in a cathedral. He found him in the dirt of a Siberian prison, in the eyes of murderers and thieves who still had a spark of the infinite in them. He found him in the aura of a seizure that destroyed his brain but opened his soul. He found him in the now. Life isn't about watching from a distance. It's about being the one who stands on the scaffold and refuses to blink. You have 5 minutes left. 2 minutes to say goodbye to the person you thought you had to be. 2 minutes to think your last words about the Crystal Palace you've been trying to build. 1 minute to look at the world. Look at it. Really look at it. It's messy. It's cruel. It's irrational. It's full of spite and sickness and gambling debts and extraordinary men making rational excuses for their crimes. And it is absolutely, heartbreakingly beautiful. We're back where we started, Semyonovsky Square. But we aren't the person tied to the stake anymore. Now we realize the firing squad has always been there. It's the deadline at work. It's the ticking of your biological clock. It's the entropic heat death of the universe. Dostoevsky's gift to us wasn't a set of answers. He was far too honest for that. His gift was a diagnosis. He saw that we were building a world, a Crystal Palace, that would eventually be so perfect, so rational and so optimized that we would have to cut our own hearts out just to fit through the door. He saw that we would trade our terrible freedom for a handful of bread and a screen full of miracles. And he told us, with the frantic energy of a man who had actually felt the cold of the scaffold, that it's a bad deal. So, here is your takeaway. Here is a Dostoevsky life hack for the 21st century. Stop trying to cure your underground. That spite you feel, that irrational urge to do something unproductive, that deep, gnawing anxiety that says you weren't meant to be a data point, that is not your pathology, that is your humanity. It's the absurdity that proves you aren't a machine. The next time you feel the walls of the palace closing in, when the algorithm is predicting your next move, and the Inquisitor is offering you the comfort of the feed, remember the 5 minutes. Live as if you have 5 minutes left. 2 minutes to forgive yourself for being a disaster. 2 minutes to look at the people around you and see they are just as broken, terrified, and holy as you are. And 1 minute to look at the light. Dostoevsky found the divine not in the perfect or the clean, but in the wreckage. He found it in the kiss Jesus gave the Inquisitor. He found it in the idiot who loved too much. The underground isn't a place you escape from. It's the foundation you build on. Because only a person who has seen their own darkness can truly recognize the light when it finally breaks through. The rifles are down, the blindfold is off. What are you going to do with your life? If this episode hit something inside you, if it felt like a cold wind blowing through the basement of your soul, then good. If you felt your underground man stir, or if you realized for a split second that the Crystal Palace you're living in is actually a cage, congratulations, you're still human. The machine hasn't finished its work on you yet. If you want to keep wandering through this wreckage with me, exploring the border between the divine and the dirt, you can find the show in all the usual digital purgatories. We're on TikTok, Instagram, and X with the handle @TheObservingEye, and we're on YouTube at youtube.com/@TheObservingEye as well. And then there's Substack, the main home of the podcast, @TheObservingEye.com. Go there if you want the full transcripts, the deep dives, and the extraordinary man theories delivered in high definition and completely ad-free. If you found a piece of this confession that stuck in your teeth, do not keep it to yourself. Join the discussion, drop a comment, send me a message, fire an email into the void at david@theobservingeye.com. I am on the other end, sitting in the dark, eagerly awaiting your messages, just quietly in a cupboard. If you want to support the show, don't just like it, share it. Give it to someone who needs their optimized life disrupted. Give it to someone who watches too much Andrew Tate. Thank you for listening. In a world that wants to quantify you and turn your soul into a data point, your attention is the only thing that still has a pulse. I appreciate you sharing it with me. Take care, everybody. Much love, and I'll catch you soon.